Hey, good morning. I've been clearing some of the brambles that have spread out over this part of the garden, and as you can see, I need to strim, but it's too wet today. In fact, it's just started to rain again. It's not the most ideal situation to be cutting grass in. So I think, because a lot of people have asked if I could recommend any herbal books for them, or any books at all, maybe we'll go inside and I'll show you some of the books that have been pivotal, I suppose, in my journey with herbs and plants, and books that I still refer to and use today, nearly every day. Yeah, because the rain is coming. I'm going to go inside. Take my tools with me. Come on, dogs. Okay, so these are just some of my books. I have a lot of books because I read a lot. And every room in the house has bookshelves dotted around. But the very first book, I think, that got me interested in herbs was about 30 years ago. It was just a little pocket book of herbs. And I just had this romantic notion that I would, I don't know, wander around and find herbs growing. And then I found this little book. It's very small. It's basically your rosemary, sage, tarragon, mint. But I love the woodcuts, the kind of medieval woodcuts. And that really inspired me as well. And it was something I aspired to have, pots of herbs like this. One of the next books that was really made a huge impression on me was this one, The Secret Life of Plants. It's by Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird, and it was published in the 70s by Penguin. And it does what it says. It talks about the secret life of plants. It looks at various experiments that have been carried out which prove that plants are intelligent and thinking and considerate. But what I remember specifically is the first story, which is about a man who was teaching young police recruits how to use a lie detector machine. And just for fun, he hooked it up to a plant in his office. And when everybody had gone out for lunch, he spotted a spider crossing his desk and he went to kill it. And just as he thought to do that, the plant went berserk, and the machine, went berserk because the plant reacted to his thought of killing the spider. So that intrigued him, and he did lots of other experiments, including having plants to help solve murder mysteries. So that's a really excellent book to really appreciate how plants are beings just like us. So if you want, lots of people are wondering, how do they know which plant is which and how can they identify it? And I can't speak for the whole world, but certainly for Europe and most of North America, any of these little wildflower books will be beneficial. This one is really good if you're in Ireland, The Wildflowers of Ireland by Zoe Devlin. It's very extensive and it's colour-coded as well. Lots of these little books you'll pick up in any bookshop. Collins Wildflowers, another book by the Appletree Press, Irish Wildflowers, Connemara Wildflowers, Woodland Wildflowers. Here's another one, which is a field naturalist's guide to wildflowers. And this one I love. I got this at one of those Sunday fetes where there's a second-hand stall. And I love this book because it's old, it's illustrated by pen and ink, and it gives you little insights into the medicinal qualities of plants as well. Onto herbal medicine, the books that I've used when I've been studying and that I just use every day anyway. This is only some of them because I have a lot more, but they're all on a little library upstairs on the landing. So Culpepper, I've often referred to Culpepper when I've been out and about in the garden. Written in the 1600s. Let me just check if it's 16 or 1700s. 1653. Very interesting. Great information about the herbs, but also the sense of history and the character of Culpepper himself, because, you know, he talks to you as if you're there with him, and he says things like, there's no point describing this plant because if you don't know what it is, you're an idiot, you know. So he's very forthright in his dealings. And this book is a revived book by Julie Bruton Seal and Matthew Seal. It's the Herbalist Bible by a contemporary of Culpepper, John Parkinson. And this is beautiful because they give you Parkinson's version of a plant and his writings on the plant. So it's in the ye old English, and then the modern view and how he was right about so many things, because modern science has proved that yes, that plant is good for this particular ailment. So I love the sense of history. I have several go-to books that I use nearly every day, and one of them would be David Hoffman's Holistic Herbal. There's a huge section in the middle all about how to use herbs and how to prepare them in different ways, topically and for internal use. And he goes through all the different body systems as well. So it's a brilliant beginning. It's a brilliant introduction to herbalism. I've got several Rosemary Gladstar books. They're brilliant as well. Healing for Women includes beautiful body care as well. And she also has another book all about body care. Again, this one is a beginner's guide, really helpful, and lots of simple, beautiful recipes for the whole family. This is by a UK writer, and again, I love to use the wild plants that grow around me. So this book is very influential in that way because it's got fantastic photographs for identifying the herbs. And again, it tells you how to use them, and it goes through the body systems. And this is by a woman called Zoe Hawes. So you could use this in America as well because we share a lot of the same plants. But it's really simple to use and amazing photographs. I'll leave the rest of the herb books there because there's just too many to go through. But Julie Bruton Seal has written these two books with her husband Matthew, and I would definitely recommend those. And A Woman's Herbal by Anne McIntyre as well. And I must mention these two because, again, we're going back to Irish folklore and the use of plants in healing. And Niall McIntyre has done Irish trees and Irish wild plants, and they're definitely worth getting for your library just because they're so interesting. I just love history. I've always loved history, and I love reading historical novels as well. So that's maybe a book list for another day. But if we move now into the more esoteric type of books that I like, Stephen Harrod Boona, this is another wonderful book that really helps you to appreciate the spirits of plants and how you can communicate with them and cooperate with them and how they will help you and pass on wisdom as well as physical healing. So that's another beautiful book. The first chapter made me cry because it just touched something so deep down inside that I've enjoyed all of his books, and he has several. So that's Sacred Plant Medicine by Stephen Harrod Boona. Glennie Kindred, she's in England, and she writes beautifully, and she also illustrates her books. She's an amazing artist. I love her pictures of trees. She embodies them all with a spirit, for example. And again, she talks about just nature, really, being in nature, the spirits of the land, the spirits of the trees, the spirits of plants. And she also gives lots of practical applications and practical recipes and tips. But also, it's very much the spiritual side of things. So how to celebrate the seasons and how to celebrate, I don't know, how to do things in corners of your garden. Lots of interesting things to read in there. And then, moving on to the more shamanic aspect of it, Cochlin Matthews has written this book, The Goddess. And I just find that very interesting because she refers to goddesses all across the world. But the message is basically there's only one goddess, but she has many, many facets and many types of personality that we can tap into to bring forth the divine feminine in our own lives. This is a book, Irish Folk Medicine. It's less a how to use herbs than a history of how they would have been used. And not just plants, but all sorts of things, like passing a child with whooping cough over the back of a donkey and through its legs again. That was a very commonly used folk healing. Then, sticking with history, this book is a beautiful book to have if you're going into the more esoteric use of herbs. This man, Alexander Carmichael, I think he was some kind of government agent, and he went around the Highlands of Scotland and the islands, and he was very interested in customs and old habits. So he collected lots of, we could call them spells or blessings or prayers. They would have been from antiquity, but they've been Christianized. So there's lots of healing herbs, chants you can use using herbs, lots of blessings for health. And it's really beautiful, and it's another insight into the Gaelic mindset around healing. So they could be used as they are. You could adapt them and just reintroduce them into your own healing practice. I think it's really important to communicate with the plants in that way. In the recent New Age movement, a lot of people look towards indigenous American practices to inform their own, whereas actually we still have our own Western mystery tradition, which is what Cochlin and John Matthews are writing about in this book, The Western Way. This goes back to our own indigenous ways of connecting with spirit and with nature and with the planet. And it's not dogma. There's meditations in here, there's journeying, everything you would expect to find within American indigenous tradition, but it's our own, and it's our own gods and goddesses, and it's our own practices. So this is a really lovely book to be looking at if you want to know more about the old religion that we would have had here. So I'll just finish off with this little book, Grandma's Ways for Modern Days. It's full of how to make your own butter, all kinds of recipes from knitting socks to making butter, growing herbs, household cleaners, all natural, ecologically sound products. The Power of Vinegar. It's a very handy little reference book. Everyone who is interested in reviving traditional skills should get a copy of this. And this is by Paul and Diana Peacock. I'll put all the authors and the titles in the information below, and then you can go and check them out for yourselves. Another day, I'll tell you about my literary shelves, the books I enjoy reading for pleasure. These are all very pleasurable to read as well, but they've also got that wonderful practical and esoteric aspect. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you get hold of some of these books and enjoy them as I do. And if you do want to start off really looking into herbs, I can't recommend the ones I've mentioned more because they're so easy to follow and so interesting and so full of practical use. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.